Ahoy hoy, I'm Angel, and today I want to rant and ramble a little bit about something we do at my table. See, me and my players, we love collaborative storytelling, and I believe that should be included among Game Master best practices, and I'll tell you why. So, you as the Game Master, you have a lot on your table already as it is, keeping track of player characters, keeping track of the NPCs, the plot, the treasures they might find, the encounters they'll face, the monsters they'll fight, the people they'll fight. Whether or not you have like an additional stat block or two in case they want to fight the store clerk, the storekeeper, they're talking to a bandit king and they decide to fight the bandit. You know, there's a lot you're juggling already behind the scenes as it is. Why would you make it even harder for you by having to come up with descriptions on the fly and names on the fly? So something me and my players like to do, and I've seen a lot of people have been doing this recently, which I'm very happy about. Put it on the players to do so, because ultimately it's a collaborative game. The Game Master's there to make sure that the rules are being followed to a certain extent, you know. They're also there to make sure that the players are having fun, but the players should also make sense that make sure that the Game Master's having fun. If your Game Master's happy, your players are happy, and it just ends up becoming the opposite of a vicious cycle, which I don't know what the word for that would be. A healing cycle, I guess? So, it's important to keep everybody accountable in that sense. Also, something very important. By doing this that we're going to be discussing today, you keep your players engaged. And that's one of the most important tools you can have as a Game Master. One of the most important skills you can have as a Game Master is keeping players engaged. So, my players arrive to a town and they are like, what can we see around the town? And I just go like, well, you tell me. What do you see around the town? And then they start describing the place. You'll be surprised how quickly players start doing that as soon as you prompt them into it. And you'll be surprised that sometimes you'll have a little wallflower wanting to pitch in as well, which is even better. Because what Game Master doesn't want their wallflower players to pitch in descriptions, right? The same way for names. Hey, what's the name of the innkeeper? I don't know, you tell me. Something else I do is, the innkeeper, what do they look like? And I ask around the table. Anybody here, would their character know this particular NPC? And I let them choose. I let them choose whether or not the characters would know the NPCs they're coming across. Because to me it makes sense. Back in college, back in the day, it would happen a lot that players would act like they were all fish out of water. Like their characters have been living in that world for decades, centuries if they were long-lived races. And whenever they would get to a new town, they would need a primer on the town about everything that went on. And whenever some information came up, the player would be like, oh, my character didn't know that. But wouldn't they? Considering that the character is from that world and maybe they haven't been traveling that far and the place that you're at is close to where we began, wouldn't they know? Or has your elf lived the past 300 years in the same place and no news came from beyond? You know, that used to be a pet peeve of mine as a Game Master, but eventually I learned to play around with it by asking and prompting players to answer their own questions. So I asked the player, does anybody know the innkeeper? Yeah, I do. Well, tell me about them. What race are they? What class are they? What do they look like? What do they sound like? And it gets players engaged. And then you're going to find players wanting to do that from time to time. You'll have players, can I describe this? And that, again, it leaves a lot off the table for the game master, so you can concentrate on all the other things you have behind the scenes that you have to keep track of. Something I have been doing a lot recently that my players utterly love. It's something I call spotlighting a scene. Well, I called it spotlighting a scene, but then a player said, well, how about spotlighting an interaction? And I like that even more, so we started calling that spotlighting an interaction. So in my sessions, at least once per session, we'll have like a little bit, like a mini downtime scene, where players are just walking around a city, and I'll ask them, does anybody want to spotlight an interaction? And then I have a list of NPCs, and players tell me what NPC they come across. And I ask them, what was the NPC doing when you came across them? Or what were you doing when the NPC came across you? And then we have our interaction, and that serves for players to interact with their favorite NPCs, start developing relationships, rivalries, villains. It is so fucking fun doing that. Just taking a little bit of time from the plot, from the story that you're telling, to let players just develop the world, because it's so important, because then the players will be invested, and besides being invested, the players are going to be creating and building the world with you. And you'll be surprised, I've also had players, because when we spotlight interaction, it doesn't only have to be an NPC. I tell them, if you want to enter spotlight an event, spotlight an item, you want to spotlight something happening in the world, you want to spotlight a villain, you want to spotlight a place, and that you know, spotlighting a place is usually how you get players to go to the brothels, because murder hobos will murder hobo always. But you'll be surprised at the things players come up with, and then players will go back to their houses and they're gonna be brainstorming, oh, next time I get to spotlight an interaction, I want to talk to this NPC. And they'll have it in mind. And maybe the first few times you do it, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get players to go in on it, especially if they're not used to it. But once they get the hang of it, you're going to see the players are going to be preparing themselves for those parts. And at least at my table, those are some of the favorite scenes for my players whenever they get to spotlight interaction with other NPCs. So something else I've been doing that helps players be more immersed with the world, and I started doing this campaign. And disclaimer, I'm not saying that I invented this. I'm not saying that I am a trendsetter. I'm not saying that I came up with this. This has existed for a long ass time. It's just we've been seeing it more, and I want to get more light to it. So the second thing I've been doing is, as a group, I asked them, so you're walking through this place, what NPC do you find? Just among all of you, pick one, or the first person to mention one, they get to say that. We did that last session, and we've been doing that for the past few sessions. I'm at session number 2 of the campaign I'm currently running, but every session I try to have it at least once. Last session they were in an island, and they just saw all the vampires of the island be murdered when the skies were parted and light shone down on them. They were not evil. And they were genocided by a giant dragon, who was the BBG of the campaign. And as they were recollecting themselves, gathering themselves after exploring the town a bit, I asked them, so what NPC does your characters find that just arrived at the island and is investigating with a group of people? And they say, oh, this person. And I had an interaction with that NPC so everybody could talk to them. And obviously it was nothing that I was planning. Disclaimer, if you're going to be doing this, you got to make sure that you as the game master are up to snuff with the whole playing off your players' wants and needs and playing off what they say, and a lot of improv, obviously. Then last session, it ended with them having to run away from a villain who was trying to just kill them with necromantic magic, just trying to kill them in one shot. It was pretty epic. Then in our little group out of game, I tell them, so your characters have been running for a couple of hours now. What NPC do they come across? And that way we know how we're gonna start next session. And one chimed in. I said the first one to say is the one that we see, and one just chimed in. And excellent. That's the NPC you're gonna be interacting with at the beginning of next session. So it's a huge load off of me as a game master, and I can really recommend it to everybody to do this, to every game master. And if you're not a game master and you're watching this, suggest it to your game master. Hey, game master, can we spotlight interactions in our campaigns? At least once a session, and if it's not possible once a session, once every few sessions, so we can like role play with the NPCs that you made for us, or I can bring an NPC from my backstory here, and things like that. And as a group, it's like, hey, game master, can we just come across this guy? It's really fun. It's really fun because I see a lot of people like they get up to the whole how do you want to do this when players finish a fight and they give the narrative power to the player so they can narrate how they do the killing blow. But why not add a little bit more to it, right? Players are like, and this one's a classic. I hadn't heard it in a long time, but I heard it last session. Not the one that I was running, one what I was actually playing in. We were in a place with books, and a player's like, "Are there any books that call my attention?" And the game master just went like, "Oh no, there aren't any. What the fuck are words? There aren't any." And that was it. And the player just kept on going. But I believe GM best practices would state, you tell me what interesting books does your character find. And I know you're scared that they're gonna be like, oh, I find the Manual of the Planes, I find the Tome of the Planes, I find the Book of Exalted Deeds, I find the Book of Vile Darkness. Don't be scared of players trying to metagame the fuck out of it and then creating a scenario where you give them a very powerful item. You just tell them, nice try, go again. And just ideally all of this is done in good faith. Because if you don't do this in good faith, then why the fuck are you at the table, right? This also obviously comes into play during Session 0. In Session 0, you set expectations and you ask people, to play in good faith whenever you have them spotlight a scene, spotlight an interaction, spotlight an item. Whenever you tell the players, yeah, you tell me what you find. Make sure to remind the players that it has to be in good faith. It's not, oh, you find like whatever the fuck you want, because then it's not really fun. The idea is that you're telling a story together. The game master is handling the rules, but there's no reason why the narrative shouldn't be shared among players and the game master, That way you share the load. And let's be honest, players are just there to roll dice and tell their own character story. Something I'm gonna eventually do during this campaign, I'm gonna have them spotlight an interaction, but I will say you cannot spotlight an NPC, you have to spotlight another player. And I'm gonna start forcing them to roleplay amongst each other. Because let's be honest, that is something that a lot of players just don't do. And nothing wrong against that, nothing wrong with that, it's just something that players aren't used to, because they're used to going to a table and I'm gonna tell the story of my character. Sure, we're a group, but every single character is having their own story. And when you're trying to do collaborative storytelling, it doesn't really work that well. It doesn't really work that well when you do it that way. That's what I'm trying to say. So, I'm gonna start prompting my players to interact with each other. Last session that I played as a player, I actually had a really cool scene that the game master gave me. made me suspect one of my fellow players, and my character acted like he was gonna attack him, but the sword fell next to him, and the player was like, "Are you attacking me?" And I'm like, "No, this is for the drama. I just want drama. It's interesting. Let's play fight, because it's role playing. We can interact amongst each other. It doesn't always have to be us and the game master. It shouldn't be just like the game master is the receptor and then they interact with every player individually. I hate that style of play. I want us all to be a huge amalgamation of information passing. From me to you to me, to the game master to us, to you to the game master to me, you know, like, I want all of that. Sadly, the player didn't really catch on when I did that, and they're like, "Oh, my character's just there." And I'm like, "Your character doesn't react in any way?" "No." "Alright, so I punch you. I punch your character and we scrap." And the game master wanted us to roll, and I I had to actually stop the table of the game, and I said, "We specifically said in session 0 that players are not gonna roll against players. That is something we set up. This is just me role playing. If you're gonna make it an issue every time I role play with another player, then I'm gonna end up not role playing, and that's boring. And at that point, I'll just quit the fucking game." So it's important, you know, to set expectations for players to realize the other people at the table are not playing their own game. We're playing a game together, so we could interact amongst each other. So that's why next session I'm gonna force my players to pick another player character to interact with, because it's something I feel we don't see as much. At least that's been my experience, sadly. But I'm gonna start forcing it into them. So, but I digress. As I was saying, collaborative storytelling. As a game master, the burden is not only on you. The onus is not only on you. It's on the whole table. So let's do it together. Let's play together. Have players describe. If a player tells you, "Does anything catch my eye?" throw it on them. Does anything catch your eye? What would catch your character's eye? Because ultimately, you know your character. Because then if you ask me, what catches my character's eye? A moldy sock on the floor. A very smooth rock that when you put it to your ear, it screams doom. Doesn't do anything else. That's all it does. Because I already have a lot of shit that I'm like running, you know. I have all my stat blocks, plot points, notes, because I do take notes when I run games, unlike a lot of other game masters that I've seen. I do take notes as I'm playing, because I like to give my players a recap and remind them of the things their characters want to do, because sometimes they do just forget. Oh yeah, that's something I forgot about the interaction with the other player, is that they forgot that their character saw a vision of my character being a necromancer, and my character's not a necromancer, and they never brought it up to my character. But I was hoping that me having that interaction with them, it would jog their memory, and they would tell my character, "Oh, I saw a vision of this," so I can tell their character, "My character saw a vision of this," and then we could play off of that. But probably the player forgot. I wouldn't doubt it. Do I expect a lot from people? Yeah. Because I like to receive as hard as I give, if you know what I mean. But I digress. So, in summary, collaborative storytelling will make your table a lot more fun. That's what I believe. Thoroughly and truly. If you're a game master that haven't done it yet, try it. If you're a player that wants to do it, talk to your game master. Worst they can say is no. Of course, this doesn't work for all tables, because if you're just playing straight hack and slash, maybe you're not gonna do that. But hey, maybe you can. You can ask the players, "Hey, there's one goblin that looks different. Tell me what is different about goblin number C." And see what happens. You might be surprised, and then Goblin C might come back a few sessions later with a bigger horde of goblins for the hack and slash. If you're doing a dungeon crawl, you can still do this. You know, you are in a large room, but there's rubble in the ground. What calls your attention about that rubble? There's some noises coming from that rubble. What do those noises sound like? You give it to the player. Of course, as a game master, you're not gonna be doing this always, because sometimes you do need to set out a couple of specifics, right? So if you're in a cave and that rubble has to have a forbidden god behind it screaming, "I am burning, the flames are eternal," you're not gonna give it to the player, because the player's not gonna guess that. You tell the player, you hear, "I am burning, the flames are eternal." And then you move from there. And then you can ask them, what do the flames sound like? You know, things like that. Just let's do this as an exercise. Let's see if we can get players to actually play off each other and game masters play off players, because collaborative storytelling, collaborative role-playing game. You don't only have to do this for narrative role-playing games. I believe you can do it in any role-playing game, honestly. And if you're not doing it, I think you're doing a disservice to you and your players. It's just so much fun. I'm not saying it's the only way. I'm just saying it's a really fun way. If you haven't tried it, try it. If you tried it and you didn't like it, then it's fine. It's not for you, but at least you gave it a try. And I tell you that because I have tried a lot of different game styles. I have tried hack and slash. I have tried dungeon crawls. I have tried strict OSR games where all you do is just meat grinders. And I know what I like because I tried a lot of different things. So think of this as an opportunity to maybe improve your narrative games or give a little bit of spice to your more classic games as well. Or to try something out that you've never tried. And again, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But at least you can say you tried. Yeah, that's it for this video. I think I have rambled for long enough. This is, what, over 20 minutes? Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Let's try to get this channel to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's never gonna happen. But hey, stranger things have happened. Up until next time, remember rule number 1, always have fun.